my brother today. Is your life okay, yeah? Or are you waiting for something good to come along? Just like the first song blew your mind away. So if you're feeling down, think up and you remember.
You ready?
I am.
How come the drummer always claps us in? I don't always counts us in. I'm not mad keen on that.
Because the drummer is the most important member of the band.
But my brain is a finely tuned metronome.
No, it doesn't matter.
True.
The drummer is the most important. Shit drummer, shit band. Everybody knows that.
Well, true.
Before we go any further, we have to do introductions so people know who they're listening to.
Okay, go for it. Let's go.
This is the first Subconscious podcast, or I was just thinking it should probably be called a codcast.
I like it.
What we're going to do is obviously a very informal chat with regard to the very early days of Submarine. Probably taking us up to, because the situation is with Submarine, there's two distinctive periods. Technically speaking, there was an argument for the band changing its name when Mark II came along. However, we didn't, because we'd already done a load of promotion under the Submarine banner, so we just carried on. So,
and it was established in that way, wasn't it? Yeah.
The time period is 95 to autumn 97.
Yeah, October, November 97. Yeah.
So I'm Scott Dean, the former drummer and manager. Should we say that?
Well, you was in that role for quite some time. Yeah. So yeah.
So I know it became more of a managerial role after you left the band, but it was still. I mean, obviously, it's loosely termed.
Not really. No, I think you was always the leading hand in the managerial department.
Okay, well, for all the
basically
good and
what
bad
that
points.
Basically what that means is me and Dave was ultimately lazy, and you was far more adept to that role. So yeah.
So there's me, the drummer. There's Lee Wortley, singer-songwriter, reluctant singer, but we never had one at the time. Then there's Dave Gelder. And if we leave it at that point for now, Dave Gelder was guitarist, lead guitarist. Because obviously the other members come in a little bit later, and we'll speak about that, hopefully in a kind of chronological order.
I would like to add something there, though. Just let me add something there. Yeah, Lee Wortley, musician, songwriter, because when people hear my voice on some of those recordings, it's not overly favourable, so...
I think easy listening is the best vocal recording that's...
we won't chat about my vocals too much.
What, from your point of view, where did your musical interest start? When did you first start playing?
I first started playing very quickly when I was about 9. I picked up a guitar, probably a bit earlier than that, a little old beaten down student classical like I think most of us started on in the 70s, and then I started playing in the classroom because back then our teachers tended to have a guitar in the class for some reason.
Well, from my point of view, my father played in a load of bands in Grimsby in the 60s, and music was all around us, but he was hugely reluctant to teach me how to play guitar. So there was always guitars around the house. There was always an acoustic in the corner. But you go anywhere near it and you get your head bitten off. My interest was before that, but the actual first time I got involved in having lessons was after we moved back to the UK from Germany. My father was obviously in the forces, so we were out in Germany for most of the 70s. But when we came back, a mate of his who'd been in bands with him during the 60s, called Alan Gladden, who's somebody who was, you know, quite important to helping out Submarine pretty much, you know, throughout the career of the band.
Yeah.
So I had a few drumming lessons with him, and then just basically, you know, like continue to learn and play on my own. In fact, it wasn't until I was probably about, I would say, 17 that I actually had my first full drum kit.
What was that drum kit?
Track.
That was it. Yeah, Track.
I can't remember what the symbols were. There was just Rogers. It was a blood red Track drum kit with Rogers symbols that was bought from Level 1 Music.
Goodness
in what was it? Is that Corporation Road? Level 1 Music.
Yeah.
What was the first band in Grimsby that you were in?
I would probably say Illustrious.
Those in Grimsby in the 80s and 90s will obviously know who they are because you couldn't get a bloody way from them. But both of us have got like a connection to that particular band because Jamie Wortley was the singer of Illustrious, who is your brother, younger brother.
Yeah.
I was in the band for I think I was in the band for about a year and a half, 2 years maybe. I honestly don't know. I can't remember. But that was my first gig. So from the point of view of like the Illustrious being the first proper band that you joined and started working with, from my point of view, it was the first band that I actually gigged with.
And that's obviously, that has to be where we first not got to know each other, because we didn't really. I don't know how we came to know each other when you went to London and then you came back and then me and you hooked up again, as if we'd hooked up before that, which we sort of hadn't, had we? You had a connection with Jamie and Mike and Paulo Glory. Then we'll call him, because that was the stage name he chose. It was.
No, I remember. That's why I'm laughing, because I hadn't thought about that for a very long time. But yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, brilliant. Anyway,
is that somewhat pretentious?
The first place that I moved to when I left home when I was 16 years old was on Cleethorpes Road. No, technically Grimsby Road, yeah. And it was with a doctor's surgery. And I had a bed sit that I lived there with the girlfriend at the time. Pablo lived right next door to me. And my residing memory of him is walking around in a yellow pair of trousers that he made himself out of what looked like fucking carpet with the name wait there, with the name Cezanne, as in the painter Cezanne, painted down the right thigh in white paint.
Right.
And now the reason that I refer to this is because Cezanne was the first band that I was ever in with him.
Oh my God, really?
So when you talk about, was he a bit pretentious?
Somewhat, slightly.
Somewhat,
who designed his trousers? Him?
Of course, he designed his trousers and he made his trousers out of carpet.
Oh my God.
They were bright yellow.
I think he probably still wore them once when I was involved with him.
Anyway.
My God. I mean, for anybody who knows him at all, they would totally understand that.
People won't know, but from the point of view of Illustrious, they were a very important band in Grimsby at that time. Not through talent, more through propaganda and hype. But the other thing was, they also eventually got signed. So in the early 90s, they were one of the only bands that have ever been signed from the Grimsby area. So whatever you may think and feel about the band, they did something, they TV, etc., etc. So, you know, they were quite important, and also quite important to us in separate ways. And it was through that connection to that particular band that me and you met. we've battered this backwards and forwards over many years about when it was that we actually first, like bumped into each other. And the memory that I have is before you played one major gig at the Flamingo in Cleethorpes.
Yeah.
With them.
That's right. Yeah.
I remember being outside with talking to Pablo. And and you came walking out of the club, because obviously you were setting up there and doing your sound check and everything. And the other thing to remember is that group of people that were around Pablo and the whole Illustrious thing. It was insanely cliquey. It's like you were only allowed into the inner circle if you were in the inner circle. So what I remember was not being allowed in, and then you came out and you were talking to Pablo, and then Pablo introduced you as being Jamie's brother, Jamie being the singer of the band, and that's pretty much where we first met. But from that point...
Oh my God.
What?
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. That's the very first point we met. And then, several years later... Obviously, I'd see you around and talk to you at the time when I was in the band, but it was never. Yeah. It's not anything that stuck in my mind because, again, when you was in that group, you were very much, self-obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you had to be.
And anything that was periphery to that, you only took a minor interest in. We must be talking around about 93, 94. Didn't I bump into you outside of Asda?
Yeah. Was that then, was it? 93, 94?
It must have been, yeah, because I was back from London. I'd been living in London. I'd been playing a load of bands in London for a while. And then I thought, I'd had enough of that. I'd had enough of living in London, and I came back. And when I came back, it was definitely around about 93, 94.
So if we're cementing the onset of Submarine, you've sort of pretty much pitched it there with where me and you first met after all those years.
I'd pretty much given up on music at that point. I got kicked out of Illustrious around about 1989, 1990. I dabbled with a few bands in London, one called Escapade, another band called The Visitors. I was lucky enough to do like a few gigs at some prestigious venues with The Visitors, but it was not my kind of music, and it was not something I was really into. And then I came back, and I'd pretty much at that point given up on any idea of playing or being involved in music in any way, because I just got sick and tired of it. So this now takes us up to around about, it must be about 95, because then you got in touch with me and said on several occasions, do you want to do something writing wise?
Well, just go back a little touch. So when me and you bumped into each other, there was more of an exchange than just hello. I think we both said what you're doing musically, and I said at that time I had a band at that time, I think called the Wallflowers, or just before that I'd done a few studio sessions with, and that was really the start of me writing. Then before that, I always wrote songs from day one, really, but all a load of rubbish. But at that point, before, just as I met you, I'd had not any success, but a little bit of sort of gigging success and a little bit of interest with the Wallflowers. So yeah, I'd done that at that time. And you said to me, what you're doing? I said, I'm still writing music. And I'll have to get in touch at one point. And you weren't at all interested, if I remember rightly. So at that point, you didn't seem interested in getting involved in anything. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. I'd completely just sort of written it off. It was like, I need to... I was working in a computer software shop in Grimsby. I was the manager of that. It was the very first computer software shop that was in Grimsby. It was on Victoria Street, and I was working there and pretty much, I was thinking about just concentrating on that and just, I don't know, getting a career in some way. I don't know what the hell was going on in my head, but we're still relatively young guys there. We're still like in our early 20s or mid 20s. The Wallflowers always slips my mind. It just because I think you was in it and doing it, and it was pretty much over by the time that I met you.
Oh yeah.
It was not something that you spoke about that heavily. And as we found out the other day, when you sent me a couple of songs that you uploaded to YouTube, it's the first time that I'd heard any of those Wallflower songs.
Yeah, and I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe that.
So
it shows you there how humble I was about stuff I'd been writing before that. Either meaning I was either humble or embarrassed.
For what I've heard, I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed about. I think they were of their time. I mean, they're very Stone Roses centric, but then that's obvious because they were your influences at the time.
Well, the Wallflowers, I'd been writing some stuff, I think, long before I even thought about doing this Wallflowers thing. A track that's on YouTube called Ride, and I was working with my mate. At the time, my mate came in, James Wright, and he and I started doing something. I then got some people involved. We turned ourselves into the Wallflowers. We did a bunch of gigs up and down the country. We did 2 or 3 studio sessions, one in London, one in Boston, I think. And then we disbanded. And in probably, like you say, I'm guessing it was around about 92, 93.
What were you doing in the band?
I was programming at the time because that's where my music started. Then I started recording on MC500s and Ataris and stuff like that. So I was always a few steps ahead with all that, I think. But yeah, then I ended up singing. But I was okay then. I think those songs at that time I was writing them in my perfect register, which is always a good thing to do if you're going to be the one singing them.
Did you ever have like designs to be a singer, or was it just something you just fell into it?
No, never ever. Jamie was the singer. Jamie's the singer. He was. Jamie always had a gift for singing when we was kids. He just could pitch very well. It was just there, you know. I picked a guitar up and I was like as if it was another extension of me, you know. But Jamie was the singer. I would never have designs on that sort of role ever. It was just chucked in. It's similar to what happened when we was doing Submarine. But I was like you. I never thought I could ever be a singer in no capacity. No. So no, I always wanted to be a guitarist, programmer, keyboard player. I ended up being, you know.
So in regard to the Wallflowers, what track of theirs do you want me to include in this?
Probably Ride. It's the most formulated and decently arranged one. Yeah, Ride. Yeah, it's a bit of a echo. It's a bit of a nod to Born to Be Wild. Yeah.
Is there anything else about Wallflowers that you want to talk about? I mean, what about how it ended, or?
Well, the only thing is that it is the reason that probably Submarine started the end of the Wallflowers. So it is poignant because I was looking for something, and I was looking for musicians to work with who I found a little bit more ambitious, let's say.
Break down the people that were involved in it. So who did what? Who were they? Can you remember?
There was James Wright, as I said, my mate who plays guitar. And then there was a lead guitarist called Michael Stannard, Mick Stannard, Stan we called him. He was fantastic guitar player. Of a certain ilk, he was a proper rock guitar player. And then there was a lad called Darryl Ixon, Daz Ixon on the bass guitar, and a kid on percussion. He was what we called the Wallflowers Bez. He was Wayne Shields, and it was great. I have great fond memories of it. It was fantastic. We did some great gigs, and it just come to an end. It just.
The music at the time, I mean, it's very Manchester orientated. I mean, you've got your Stone Roses, you've got your Happy Mondays. That's obviously where the Bez reference comes from. Ride, etc., etc. It's all that kind of Manchester, isn't it? Kind of period.
Yeah, it is.
Because also the kind of like the latter days of Illustrious were quite influenced by that period as well, weren't they?
Oh yeah, oh definitely, yeah. Well, that was the thing. I think that was their sort of demise because, apart from the obvious, I think the leading songwriter in that, we'll call him, because that's what he was, old Cezanne Trousers. He always had delusions of grandeur, and he probably thought, I'm too good for this now, and that's why. But at that time, he sort of latched on to any type of music that was current, as you're just about to point out there. So obviously that thing was, and they shouldn't have done that. They should have just stuck to what they were doing, because whether we like it or you like it or any of us like it or not, they was doing well, and they did really well, and I have to say to me, it was a really good time for me brother. He did some fantastic work, and they got offered £1 million deal with Arista. It was a big deal. I mean, but yeah, it was a shame. It's a shame really, because they could have gone on to even better things. I do believe that at the time, because they just hit it on a time. They were massive in this town. Yeah.
I mean, but that's the problem, isn't it? And it's a problem with most bands. It all stays so provincial.
Yeah.
It's like turning around and saying that Submarine were massive in Grimsby. I mean, who gives a shit?
In '94, there was not really any mobile phones, was there? So you and I must have exchanged home phone numbers.
Yeah, it was all telephone calls at that moment in time. It was I distinctly remember sat in the little flat that I had. It was in Thorgham Court in Grimsby, and that's kind of where we started communicating a lot more, because the computer software shop I was managing closed down. That company went bankrupt. Next Level. That's why I called it Level 1. It was called Next Level.
That's it.
So that closed down. I was like unemployed. So then it was a case of, what am I doing next? I'd spent a couple of years hanging out with the likes of David Icke and doing that kind of crap. So,
you did, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of heavily influenced in all that conspiracy thing and all that, and obviously it's not going anywhere. I did try my hand at like some writing and all that, but it was just this is just not me. I just can't do this. So I think that because of it at that point and all those things had come to an end, I'm kind of at a loose end. So then you give me a phone call, and I remember one specific phone call and you saying, look, why don't you just come over? And because the thing is also, we referenced this later on in that BBC interview with Submarine, about the fact that the early days of Submarine, which never had a name at that point, was solely a writing project. It wasn't a band, because if you'd have turned around and said to me at that point, "Oh look, we're going to be in a band and we're going to start rehearsing," and blah, blah, I'd have gone, "No fucking way," and I just run for the hills. So it was very much like, let's just informally get in a room, bang it around, let's see what we can come up with. And that's pretty much it. Because if you remember, and you will do, I brought that song that I'd written to you about fucking dolphins or something.
Yeah, that's strange that they liked it.
Well, the thing was this: you know what it's like when you write a song, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but you've got the guitar there, and you're like, and then all of a sudden, little lines come in your head, which you change at a later date. So I'm like, the dolphins, and then it just stuck, and it was never fucking changed, and it was never really changed lyrically. But anyway, key
words have to stay, because what can you swap dolphins with?
What point does Dave Gelder get involved?
Well, Dave, I saw Dave doing a gig at the Central Hall when I had another band on the go at the time. Probably was the Wallflowers, and I'm guessing he might have seen us, or he might have heard something. I don't know, because he knew of me, I'm sure. In this little ensemble that they had together, which was Kid Out of Proud was singing. Dave was their lead guitarist, and someone asked me to go along and listen to him. I think it was Laura, who was a backing vocal for him, but she was far better than the actual singer. Laura Lees Morgan, and she told me to come along and watch this gig, so I went along, and I'll never forget it, to be honest, because it was... I'd worked with quite a few guitar players, and I had quite a few really good guitar players, and I was stood at the back sort of nonchalant, not paying much attention, and the start kicked in with Hey Joe, and I heard this intro to Hey Joe that I've never heard it played like that before, and I was like, wow, who the fuck is he? And I looked, it was some little geezer. It looked like sort of to me like an office boy playing amazing rock guitar, and it was Dave Gelder. And I think he came off the stage or something, and I said to Laura, "Oh, tell that guitarist of yours, if he wants to do some work, to give me a call."
Well, I have no recollection whatsoever of when Dave joined the band. Dave was always there, from my point of view. I know that's not the case, because there's a transition period. But I don't have... From the point of view of like Submarine's inception, I have no recollection of Dave never being around. For me, in those early days, it was always me, you and him. However, saying that, isn't there a connection to the guitarist from the Wallflowers with early Submarine? Who was the second guitarist that was in Submarine? Because there were two.
Oh, yeah, right at that beginning. You mean when we was rehearsing, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd forgot. Yeah, that was Mick. Yeah, I'd forgot about that, yeah. But Dave was a bit of an innovator, wasn't he? As soon as we started doing anything with Dave, you could hear he was very inventive and very different. I thought he was like... Well, I said, did I not say to you, he was like what analogy did I give you the other day? I said, he bought to lead what Johnny Marr bought to rhythm. That was it. Yeah, and I do believe that is a truth where Dave's concerned, yeah.
So when Dave then joined the band as the lead guitarist, there were other people in the band at that moment in time, if I remember rightly.
Mm-hmm. Pete Bratley, who's Pete was singing, and he's a songwriter. He's also a really good songwriter, and he had his own band at the time, a band called, or was it just before that? He ended up having a band called Afterglow. So, and they went on to do some good things.
Can you remember why at that moment in time that 5-piece wasn't working?
Yeah, I can. It was just we all wanted different things. That was all it was. It was like how any band comes to an end. We wasn't fully a band at that time, was we? It was
no.
It was everything was up in the air. That I was playing bass. You know, I think even at that time, I'm moving on to Pete Clarke. Even then came in on electric piano. So he also sat in on them sessions. Some of them.
Pete came in via an advert for a bass player.
Yeah, that's mental then. Yeah. How did that work out? Can you remember?
I'm trying to think.
Because I was playing bass. I know that for a fact. I was playing bass.
You were playing that. You were playing like a Hofner copy, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were playing like the old Beatles Paul McCartney bass, but you weren't the bass player. You were just filling in there. This is what's interesting about your particular role in the early stages of that of Submarine, because it flipped all over the place. It's like, really, it was your position in that band was principal songwriter, but then because you can take your hand to bass and you were doing the programming and the keyboards and everything else, you could basically flip around all of them and add whatever was needed when we were in the process of recording, which is what we're now moving into. But it's interesting that 1 minute you're the bass player and then you're not the bass player and then 1 minute you're the singer, but you're not the singer. And it's kind of like, even though there was a central role that you were, like for instance, I'm drummer. I'm helping you with some of the songs, some of the lyrics, more than anything else. But it's like, that's not my principal job. My principal job was drummer in the band. And from your point of view, it was like you were floating around a lot. We had Dave, who was the lead guitarist, and then the principal guitarist, when we realised that he could do everything that was ever required of him. But then you still carried on playing rhythm guitar, acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting that in retrospect, your position was literally floating around everything, because even when you come to the drumming on the initial was all programmed, because we couldn't afford to go into the studio, so we're in the upstairs back bedroom recording what then became a 5-track demo called, as you said, Ocean Full of Sea, and that name was a piss take of Ocean Colour Scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there were on that actual cassette. Let me just grab a copy of it. There were five songs on that cassette. So we've got Easy Living, Funny How, Save the Day, What's Going On, and For a Day. Now, none of these songs were actually used, were they, in any way? If you think about it, they weren't sent off to any of the local press. They weren't sent off to any of the industry.
No.
So it's just interesting at that moment in time that we are pretty much a writing project that's trying to get off its feet, and we create this. From my point of view, just thinking about it, we create this 5-song demo, but don't end up doing anything with it.
Well, you say that, but I think we probably recorded that to probably get the interest of other people involved at some point. So, yeah, you know, so it was before Pete was involved. So if we was then thinking we actually need a bass player to come in, whether we're recording or whatever we're doing, here there's some songs we've written. So probably it was just for that reason, and to see if we could do it. I think, you know.
Well, look, the next stage for any band is to get the songs that they've been writing together and record them in some capacity. And at that moment in time, those 5. I mean, there are other songs floating around, but if we stick to what we actually put on a demo tape, most demo tapes are used to garner interest in the band and its material. Now, you know, you'd be the first person to admit that the material on this particular cassette is nowhere near ready to be near any record company's ear. It is very much a guide for us. It's like, right, okay, this is where we're at. And we're also recording under very limited means. No one's got any money. We're doing it all on a 4-track and bouncing down on those tracks so we can get more tracks to put more things on them. And so therefore the quality of the actual songs themselves from an audio perspective end up being, you know, pretty ropey in parts. But it's all relative to the beginning of a band and, you know, moving in the direction that it was going. But if we that particular 5-song demo it says on the cassette was recorded over a 5-day period in your house in Chelmsford Avenue. And when is this? 96? It's 96, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in July of July of 96, there's the three of us. There's only the three of us involved in this. Now, I remember us rehearsing these songs as a 3-piece. Again, it's a very ropey situation because there's no bass player, there's no keyboards as such. So you're on acoustic guitar, or you might be on bass. But my memory is mainly on acoustic guitar, with Dave playing a bit of lead and me on a makeshift hi-hat, snare drum, and a set of brushes.
With your bass drum being the back bedroom carpet, basically.
Yeah, and Julie, your missus, constantly complaining about the banging on the floor.
Yeah, totally, yeah. But talking about, so that was a song a day, wasn't it? Ocean Full of Sea was like a song a day, 5 songs over 5 days, so it was a song a day, and we hadn't, like you said, we got them to a level, and we just wanted to get something down on tape.
You've taken everything that I had to my name. You made me swallow my pride, guess my shame to the side for a day. Oh, I didn't realize just what you were scheming. I didn't notice the signs, couldn't see, I was blind for a day. You keep pushing it hard all the time to get by. Oh, I should have spoken my mind instead of keeping cool, yeah. I should have taken the time that could twig some of the night that you dared to. Yeah, but then there's one thing I love about my mistakes. I just had some time to listen to all your stories. You added all those funny lights so I wouldn't know the truth. Slip away, dream a while with me. Funny how life can be. Caught in a world full of hopes and dreams, memories you lies. Such a world you can't get out till something comes your way someday. What's it all about? I've heard you say life can be funny that way.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how we went about the recording of that? And
This is the process that back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, that every fledgling band went through. You know, no money. Most of us are unemployed. We're passionate about playing music, and hubris is involved. You always think that what you're doing is the best thing that's ever been heard when it isn't. But at this point, we're like, yeah, we can do it. This is what we want to do. And so you've got a situation where you've got like a mini studio set up in your back bedroom. So we've rehearsed through these songs as a 3-piece. We've got an arrangement together. You know, everything's the melodies and the lyrics are all there. So then we think, right, okay, we now have to sit down and start recording these. So working from the ground up, what was the equipment that you had in that back bedroom that you can remember that we actually recorded this demo tape on?
I had a Roland MC500 for programming, which is a sequencer, which is a late 80s sequencer. Started with a 300, moved to a 5, and then a 5 Mark II and a 50. Most amazing bit of kit you could ever wish to own. Most people thought you was a genius if you could use it at that time. And then when you're hearing it coming out of my big tannoy speakers, at first you're wondering how that's happening because there's nothing to see, and that bit of kit was amazing. And I had about 7 or 8 of them.
So from the people out there that don't know, you're not doing this from an actual monitor or a PC screen, etc. You're doing it from a little LED screen, isn't it? It's a tiny little screen.
Yeah,
I mean, what are we talking about?
Is,
width and wise and lengthwise? You look at some.
Well, it's like a
4 inches by 2
it's like
inches.
a 32. Probably that. It's probably 32 dot display. That's what it is because you've got 32 steps. So yeah, it's probably about 4 inches by 1, if that. And it's like a cash register looking thing with numbers on and keys on, and then I'm recording things in step time into that. So sounds from my keyboards, expanders. I remember for that project I did have a bit of money. I bought 2 Icke XE8 drum expanders, if you remember, which I used on that. They were amazing, sort of raw drum sounds. So I had that. I had a SY85, Yamaha SY85 into the Roland MC500. We had effects where a MIDI verb, I think, Elise's MIDI verb and a quad reverb. I had a couple of piano modules, of which I don't know what. Yamaha EMT10, that was it. Good God, it's mad how you can remember it because that's how many years ago. I think I had 2 of them piano modules, which we'll talk about later. And a bunch and a Icke sampler or something I had, I think, all going into a Porter 07 Tascam Porter 07 4-track. Or was it a 6-track? Was it a 6-track or 4-track?
I believe it was a 6-track, but that's actually, it's interesting you bring it up at that point, because my next point was going to be, we're having all this great technology at the time, and it's sounding amazing coming out of the speakers. By the time you put it on a tape and you'd bounced it down several times, it sounded nothing like it did when it was raw and coming at you through the speakers.
True. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, totally. Because you've just said the word there, bounced.
Yep.
That's it. That is the thing. So we're having to bounce to make it a 12-track or whatever we're doing.
Just explain that to people that have got no recording experience, what that actually entails.
Okay, so if you're bouncing, so let's take 4 tracks of audio. So it's recording to a tape, like just a normal cassette tape. Okay, so we're recording, we record drums on. No, we record all the keyboard stuff, the programmed stuff. So that'll be the drums and everything, because it's already been mixed through my big mixer. Which would have been a Studio Master 24-track mixer, I'm guessing at that time, console. And then, so that would all be recorded onto, it would be recorded stereo onto 2 of the tracks. So you've got everything on the first 2 tracks of the Porter 07, the Tascam. You've got drums, bass, no, not bass. Drums, keys, all the pads, and any sort of percussion, anything. The majority of it there that isn't recorded in audio, that's coming straight from the racks and the keyboards So you've got them there, and now bouncing comes in. So then on track 3, you've got the bass, but you're freeing up. You've got to record that all over to another track so that you can use those 3 tracks again. So you've got track 1, 2, and 3 with all stuff on, 1 and 2 with the music, and 3 with the bass on. Then you record all them bounced onto track 4. Then you go into mono. Obviously, well, it's bridged mono, I think. So now you've got all of that. Remember, you've got to mix this. You've got to mix that perfectly, because once it's recorded to track 4, that's it. That's it. You can't go back because it's gone. So you mix that. So now you've got all of the music and the bass on tracks on track 4. But like we said, it might have been a 6-track, but we'll say it's a 4-track. So you've got it all on 4, and then now you've got the other 1, 2, and 3 freed up. They've got nothing on them. Essentially, you're recording over whatever's been recorded on there.
And then
so now,
on those 3 tracks would then go acoustic guitar, Dave's guitar, and vocal. And then it will probably be bounced again, and then you'll be doing backing vocals and more guitar. So it's,
and also what you've also got to remember is that when we're probably recording a vocal track, if we've realised that we wanted some tambourine shot on every 4th beat, or on every snare drum, you might be putting that over the top of a vocal or a backing vocal. So that's where it starts sounding crap. But to us, coming through them speakers at that time, I had a pair of JBL Control 1s, which are absolutely unreal, little rubber studio monitors that got succeeded by the Yamaha NS10s. Everyone looks in the studio and see a pair of them with the white cones laid on the sides. Every studio had them then. Every studio's got them now. Well, they haven't, because they're all having them KRK things, aren't they, or whatever they are. I don't know, American things. But yeah, we had them, and then a pair of Tannoy big bassy type speakers. It sounded great in that room.
Well, the thing to also remember is the cassette tapes that we've got are already starting to degrade, and it was only it was this year actually that the majority of this material of Submarines got digitized, and that's the first time. So you're taking it from 25-year-old, 26-year-old cassette tapes, and digitizing it for the first time. There is going to be some loss of quality. It's not as bad as I don't know if cassette tape's as bad as videotape. Videotape, after 30 years, your videotapes won't chuck it in the bin, most of them.
Yeah, no, cassette tapes, if you look after them and they're sat in their plastic cases, they seem to stand the test of time.
We always use this is amusing. We always use the SA90 TDK cassettes. And you know why we always use them?
Well, I know exactly why we always use them.
I know W.H. Smiths knows why we always use them.
Yeah, so yeah, we did. So we didn't have any money, but we seemed to acquire quite a lot of TDK SA90s.
Yes.
So
yeah.
we'll let you use your imagination where that.
I don't care. Yeah, the amount of TDK SA90 cassette tapes that I must have nicked back in the mid '90s is insane. I mean, my knowledge of the technology of the time, the recording technology and the sequencing technology, that really did start to become quite accessible from the point of view of like amateur bands back in the late 80s, really. So by the time we get to like the mid 90s, there are a lot of things that obviously it looks archaic now to what you can do with with
your phone or an iPad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's insane what you can do now. I mean, just thinking about the technology that we're using right now to do this, it's like you couldn't even dream of half of it back in like the mid 90s. But you could still get a very competent demo tape together in the back bedroom, Well, people have been doing this in the 70s on Tascam 4 tracks, as long as you don't want to... The problem is when you start the bouncing process, the quality just deteriorates every single time. And when I listen to these this particular demo tape, what I think to myself is, why did we become so obsessed in that production and overly produced, style when...
I don't know.
Yeah, because we could have put these down with a straight drum track, bass, rhythm, couple of lead guitars, vocal, done.
Look at me, desperate as I am. No one going by outside today. Here I stand as the shadows fade my way. I'm stealing home, the wind still in my face. 'Cause I don't need you to worry about me, 'cause I'm strong enough for two. And I don't need you by my side. But when I'm all alone, I think of all the things that I've done wrong. But what's going on, what's going on? So look at me, as restless as I am. There ain't no one going by outside today. Said you just wanna be friends. You'll never be the same again. But I wanna know from your heart if all your intentions were meant. Did you plan your life without me again? Did you pray that the story would end and make it easier on you? Today, saw my life drift away. I thought I would never see the day when you creep away so calm. I'm so lost for words without you. So tell me now, what can I do? Now the world looks strange without you right here.
But we're musicians, Scott, and we have to have your ego stroked a bit. And if you've got all of that on a tape and you think it sounds as good as it sounds through the speakers, their ears start pricking up. Just playing someone a quick raw bit of drums, and like we would do it now, like you just said, exactly how you just said it. You play that to, Tom, Dick and Harry and say, "Hey, do you like that?" And it's like, well, what is it? It's like a wake print sort of thing, and that's it. But we wanted to print something that sounded like a full song and sounded like a full production. And the other thing about that is, you're also, that's another thing. You're also recording a lot of those instruments. You record because you think, if next week we get some money, which brings me to the point about none of us had any money. Well, Dave always had plenty of money. He just didn't want to give us any.
I don't know how true that is, but it sounds good, so we'll keep it in.
I think it's true. He always seems to have plenty of money. He always seems to have plenty of money, and good luck to him. But he never wanted us to get our hands on it.
I never really thought about it, but Dave's the corporate breadhead, so he always had. Was it Novartis he worked for?
Well, I thought he worked for MI5.
No, I think it's the MFI. You're thinking furniture people.
He got offered a job with MI5, and you and I told him he was a loopy bastard for not taking it.
Hang on.
I remember
hang on.
words.
I don't know nothing about this.
You do, because you said to him, "What, you mean to tell me you're going to stay at that shit-fuck place you're at when you could be James Bond for a bit?" That's your words.
I can't. This is completely new to me. I don't remember any of this.
Oh, I remember that. Well, I did. I mean, I couldn't have just made that.
Well,
up.
you might have done. But what I'll do is I will ask Dave, and he will know, because obviously he will know.
He is because he is him. Yeah.
So yeah,
and he knows if he got offered a job with MI5.
Are you sure it wasn't? Are you sure it wasn't MFI?
Well, it could have been. It could have
That's
been.
another joke that no one's going to get because MFI used to be a leading furniture supplier.
It's too old. Yeah. well. So closing my point there. So we would have recorded everything in its entirety as much as we could, because if all of a sudden next week we got the chance to go in the studio, in the actual studio for one day, we'd have all that material recorded, and we could spend one day in a studio. We don't have to duo. It's all recorded. Even if we want to just record the drums again, with you playing them live, we've got all the rest of it. So you just you would have just gone in there, click-tracked yourself up, and then played along to, and then everything would have been added after, and it would have cost us one day in the studio. So that's the reason for that as well.
But kind of moving on now from that period, just to end, I don't remember ever rehearsing any of these particular songs that are on this demo tape, and I don't remember doing anything with these songs, because I think what the reason for that is when you're going through that prolific period of writing, which all people go through over periods of time, there was just more. There was just more and more material. I mean, I don't know. During, like, say, this is recorded in '96, I don't know how many songs would have been written during that period, but let's just throw a ballpark figure out there of, I don't know, 20 songs were probably put together during that time. And this was obviously, as always, the best 5 that you've got, but this best 5 pretty much turned into,
nothing.
Yeah, because
this was the best of the bare lap.
Yeah, it was the best. It was best of what we had, and I think you can hear that when you listen back to them. But then,
you'll definitely hear it.
But then we start thinking about moving into playing these songs live. So therefore, needing other people to play. As we said, you were never the bass player. You were never in this band to be the bass player.
No.
So we place an ad in. We made an ad.
You made an ad.
I'll put a picture of that on the screen now. So
you made an ad. Me and Dave had nothing to do with the managerial side of Submarine.
We created the poster, and the poster went up in Paul's Music, which was kind of one of the hubs, if not the only hub at that moment in time, for all the musicians that lived within, like, Grimsby in the North East Links area. And if you wanted anybody local, that's pretty much where you put an ad. A4 size ad. And I spoke to Pete Clarke. First of all, he said, I answered the ad. I saw the ad in Paul's Music, and I wrote down your number, and I called you, and I remember meeting you in Intax Muse in Grimsby, that small Muse flat, and talking about it there. However, since then, he said, actually, I've got a recollection of Alan Gladding also getting in touch with me and saying, look, these guys need a bass player. Are you interested? So he's kind of like thinks that maybe both of those things happened. He's quite adamant that he saw the ad, but he also said, as far as he's concerned, that Adam Gladding is the drummer who originally gave me the first drumming lessons that I had. He also played in numerous bands with my dad in the 60s. So Alan's kind of a stalwart of the Grimsby music scene for a long time, through 70s, 80s and 90s. Alan would help any band in any possible way. He was also a bit of he was like a hub himself. So a lot of information would pass through him that he would pass on to other people. And in this instance, when Pete turns around and says, Alan probably got in touch with me and said, you might want to give this a go, it's highly feasible that's what happened. So now we're in the period where Pete joins the band. I only recall the first meeting with Pete at my house when he mentioned it to me the other day, and we just briefly talked through what we wanted to do, and almost certainly gave him a copy of this cassette.
Oh, hell. What, he still wanted to join?
Yeah, that's quite surprising, isn't it? But
Yeah.
but then obviously that would have very quickly moved over to like the hub, which was your place in Chelmsford Avenue, and we then, I don't know if there was any formal agreement of Pete joining the band as the bass player, but
No.
you say you remember Pete rehearsing with us on keyboard
Definitely.
on
the electric piano.
Yeah, well, that's also possible because Pete remembers, and I remember Pete being there. So we're in 90. This is now 96. So what was the school that we went to bash out the tunes?
School was Hereford School, comprehensive school. It was down Westwood O in Grimsby.
And in the evenings we used to rent. Did we rent it out or did they just give it to us?
Well, I went to Chelmsford School, which backs onto Hereford, and our headmaster at Chelmsford School, he was the headmaster at Hereford School, so he knew me. So I don't remember ever having anything. Honestly can't remember even speaking to him, but I must have done. And I said, we're a band and we need to rehearse somewhere, and he said, we could definitely use the hall, but as long as we look after the place. I mean, it was really good of him, because we had the full hall, the stage and everything.
Oh yeah, it was big.
We
It's
used
a
to rehearse.
massive place.
Well, we used to rehearse backed up to the cyclorama between that and the curtains.
Yeah.
That's where we rehearsed. It was like, it looked very much like the recent footage of Get Back. It looked like that sort of scene. If people want to picture what it looked like, it was like that. And honestly, all I remember is Pete being there at that rehearsal. I don't remember any other meeting with Pete Clarke other than him being sat there behind, I'm sure he had a big 88 key electric piano and he was sat behind that. Yeah.
But he joined as the bass player.
But I don't know.
So maybe what it is
He
is
did.
one particular song we were going through ideas, and because Pete is a pretty superb multi-instrumentalist, so it's like he give anything to Pete and he'll play it. So maybe in that particular tune, you just went onto the bass and he was playing a bit of keyboards, and we were just trying out a different idea. But I think when any new member joins a band, there is that transition period where everybody is kind of, looking at them out of the corner of their eye because you're sussing each other out. And
Yeah, of course you are, yeah.
and it must have been very difficult for him to come into that, because by then, me, you and Dave have pretty much become, again, as always happens with bands, pretty cliquey, because by that moment, by the time that Pete joins, we've already been working together for a year. So that bond and those friendships have already formed. So any in-jokes or whatever are going on, it's always going to be difficult for somebody to come into that from the outside. And from my point of view, it's just weird. I don't know how anybody else feels, but it is just weird having somebody else come into that unit and them finding their space, especially them finding their space for the creative ideas. And I don't think at that moment in time Pete was given that space. I think
No.
it would have been very, very difficult, because first and foremost, I don't know Pete at that point. I guess you don't know Pete really at that point, apart from some of the bands that I'd been involved in.
I knew him a bit because I knew him a bit more than you, because I knew a girl who used to sing who was a vocalist for me with some band I did years ago that we don't have to go through that. He formed a duo with her, I think, and so I knew him through that. So I'd been to see them a couple of times and sort of got introduced to Pete. But you know how it is in a town like we live in, back then, the bands sort of fought against each other. You didn't help each other out. You sort of you thought, well, we're better than you, so I don't want to talk to you. There was that. It was a very, very sort of tetchy thing being then. I don't know why. I don't know. It's just always been like that. It's like you were two different football teams, I guess. It's like Liverpool, Everton, you know. But I don't know, Scott. I feel like we probably put an ad in for Pete for a bass player, but because he and I are of a similar ilk. You know, if I had a studio, I would have been doing what Pete does. If I had a studio, that's what I would have been the man who does what Pete does. Me and Pete do the same sort of jobs.
Well, when you talking about Pete Clarke and his involvement in the band, when you know Pete's abilities and you know the bands that he was working in, when I look back and think to myself, well, all we had at this time was, you know, a handful of songs on demo tape and some very rough versions of the songs Brother, 1,000 Miles, you know, other stuff that we're going to be speaking about. God knows why he wanted to join the band.
Well, I'll tell you exactly why. Because we were probably looking like we was doing something fresh and new.
Well, this is the saving grace. Is I don't want to be too detrimental about the material. I mean, look, the material at that moment in time, especially from that first cassette, was pretty ropey. But what it has going for it is that it's all original material. Because we move into a different era now. Because with Pete Clarke comes the use of Pete's Pad recording studio, or Total Audio, as it was called. They changed the name to it, but everybody in the local area knows it as Pete's Pad. And every band rehearsed and recorded there. I mean, I'd been going there to.
Well, if you didn't, you wasn't a band.
No, exactly.
Then. If you didn't rehearse or record at Pete's Pad, you weren't a band.
So Pete's Pad was like a 12-track recording studio and rehearsal room on Cambridge Street, if I remember rightly, in Cleethorpes. I have nothing but fond memories of Pete's Pad. I actually thought for a long period of time that it had been pulled down until I was corrected that no, it's still there. It just hasn't got any equipment in it. But the actual rooms and the building is still there. Having Pete involved in the band meant that we had access to Pete's Pad, rehearsal room and recording studio for the first time, which was a godsend because he was... there were two engineers working at Pete's Pad recording studio, him and John Patterson, and they pretty much at that moment in time were recording all the bands in the area that were, you know, just like us, up and coming young guys, and
but who had money.
Yeah.
You see, Pete for me, sorry to butt in, but Pete for me, when he came and got involved with us, he was like I thought he was going to be like the George Martin element. Not that I'm saying we was anything like the Beatles or anywhere near as talented, but what I mean is he seemed quite old school, Pete, at that time. And if I'm honest, I didn't have much idea of his talent at that time.
The guy came not only with the, you know, being a multi-instrumentalist, but including piano, but came with a recording studio. And I don't think that, well, I didn't know that at the time. I think that came up, you know, sometime after we'd started talking about, you know, we started working together as a four-piece. Because at that point, we've now got more songs, and we have demo versions. Oh, well, I have demo versions of what ended up on the second demo tape. It was a 3-track demo tape, what we called What in the World, which had Brother, 1,000 Miles, and What in the World. Now, if you listen to the demo versions of let's say the pre-demo versions that were put together on the same 4-track in your spare bedroom, when we take these into Pete's pad and put them on the 12 track, well, then that's when the actual talent and the possibilities start to become apparent. Because, you know, obviously every band, as you're writing, your songwriting will get better and better and better and better and better until the point where you run out of ideas and it drops off a cliff and you either make it, you come back or you don't. But from this point of view, it's all moving forward, and it's moving in a, you know, like the trajectory is going in the right way, shall we say? So we've now got 3 songs that we're recording, that we're rehearsing as a 4-piece in the school hall, and the crossover period of then taking them and moving them into Pete's pad is a complete blur for me. I don't really have any anecdotes or recollection of that period other than I remember the 4 of us being cramped in that back room. I remember just basically the rehearsal process of them. Now, I don't want to jump too far ahead yet because, you know, we're still in the 4-piece point. And we're still working on these songs. We haven't taken them into Pete's pad yet because of one reason: we don't have a singer.
No.
And
that's right.
It must have been at some point during this period that you're saying, "Look, I don't want to be the singer anymore."
Well, I think it became quite apparent that I just wasn't going to cut it. It was obvious that.
Well, again, sorry, I interrupt, but we never had that conversation. We never had that conversation where it was like, "Oh, Lee, you're going to be the singer of the band." It was just it was something that you did to get the songs across, but it was never. I don't think did we ever think that you were ever going to be the actual singer in the band?
Never. No, we never did, no. I think at that time, if I'm honest with you, do you know what I honestly believe at that time? I probably think that if we was going to get the chance to take those into a studio, a proper environment, in my head at that time was probably Fairview, not even Pete's pad in Hull. We would probably end up getting my brother to do the vocals on them. Just to get them recorded with a better vocalist on at that time, before all this thing came with Pete, Clarke and everything else. I think that was probably what was going through my mind, which would never happen for whatever reasons, but it was probably something that went through my head. You know.
Yeah,
because it was at that point that we have to mention. At this point, Colette Tuckey, because it's at this point where we tried out a female vocalist, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So Colette, who had worked with, again, she'd worked with Illustrious.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing her doing backing vocals with them back in the year. It would have been about 1990, 91.
Yeah.
Because at this point in time, Illustrious had completely folded, hadn't they? It was all over and done with.
Yeah.
Well, but that pretty much ended as soon as that begun, though it didn't really go anywhere. I
think there was only one visit, wasn't there, to my house?
No.
I think she visited my house once. I was full of cold.
I remember her coming round twice. I remember once, which was kind of more of an informal meeting and a chat, and not much going on, you know, giving her a tape of the songs. She went away, learned a few of the songs, and then came back for that particular session that was recorded, which amazingly we still have a copy of. and then that was it. It didn't go anywhere. So,
but no one told her. It just dissolved. No one said to her, "Oh yeah, Colette, we're not going to do that anymore." We just didn't call her again. So sorry, Colette, if you listen to this.
That's bands for you, isn't it? Well, it's very reminiscent of what happened towards the latter stages of Submarine when we went through a process of trying to audition female singers. But that's another story for another time. But it's about now that, well, let's say Colette comes in, she puts her vocal on these songs, which we only have a rehearsal copy of, and we hear them and think, right, okay, look, we have really got to resolve this singer situation. Again, my recollection of that whole process of what we did is vague. However, we now come into the period where Paul Marklew joins the band as a singer. But before that happens, I know that when the idea of Colette was being thrown around, I threw Paul's name into the hat. However, I was at that moment in time hugely reluctant to get involved with Paul in a band situation. Now, the reason for that is I know Paul from way back. I saw Paul play in Citizen's Arrest, one of his early bands. Paul Marklew has been on the scene in Grimsby for a long time, and always been involved in music. Very prolific in that sense. And
a professional type.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
artist.
He'd worked on the ships. Nobody could deny Paul's talent as a singer. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh no, he was a thoroughbred.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
But the reason that I was reluctant was because I knew Paul's background, and Paul's background was on the boats and the ships, and it was in cabaret, and he'd been hugely successful at doing all that. However, as I said, I had seen earlier incarnations of bands that he was in the 80s. And now Citizen's Arrest being one, the first time that I met Paul Marklew would have been around about 1985. And it had been about the time where they were doing that, all the Live Aid thing was going on, and they had the Live Aid in Grimsby, the Live Aid gig. But just before that, what happened was a friend of mine called Mark Hansley was a singer in a band called Section 10. And Section 10 supported Citizen's Arrest at Gulliver's nightclub in Grimsby, which was the indie nightclub and one of the only clubs that bands could actually play at. And I remember going to the sound check to see Section 10 and also obviously sat through a rehearsal set of Citizen's Arrest. And that's where I first met Paul for the first... I don't even know if Paul knows that. But...
No.
Because, I'm like... I think I'm 16 at the time, 17. So, I'm just some kid in the corner. who's there hanging out with his mate and his mate's band. But
And what was Citizens Arrest then? With like a Simple Mindsy type of
it was,
new romance? I don't know. I've seen a little clip, but that's all I've probably got from
I won't go as far as saying they were new romantic. They were more like U2, Simple Minds. That was the vibe. That's what they were doing.
I think the little thumbnail I saw, they looked like they were on the way to being dressed a little bit new romantic. I don't know, or just at the beginning of that.
No, you're way over. You're way off. New Romantics. New Romantics was 80, 81. This is 85.
Yeah, well, he was a bit late. It's probably all the clothes he had left.
It was the haircut and the clothes. It's of the time. It's 1985. But anyway, my only reluctance was that I knew Paul through Andrew Wilson, who again is a bass player and somebody who's been involved in music in the scene in Grimsby for quite a long time. And I knew Paul personally through Andy Wilson. And for me, it was a square peg in a round hole situation. And you'll remember the conversations. Paul's name always came up, but it was always me bringing his name up, because I knew how good he was.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, yeah.
But the fact was, it's like, I just don't know how it's going to fit with the personalities in the band, and also...
Well, I think I remember you actually saying those exact words.
Well, this is the way that I remember it. We approached Paul to actually come and put some vocal on our songs that we knew would be good. I don't think we approached Paul to actually be the singer in the band. I think the compromise that was had, and this is no disrespect to Paul, it's got nothing to do with his talent. The reason that we wanted him was his talent and his ability to sing. However, it was just at that moment, it was that we need a singer, but is this person going to fit? And we decided that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I can remember, what we decided was, let's get Paul to sing on these songs, because it would be really good to have like a high quality vocalist put down a proper vocal so we can hear what they like. And especially because we were taking them into now a 12-track recording studio and having Pete engineer that, we knew that, the music was going to sound great. And there was no disrespect to you, but there was no point in having you sing on those songs when we'd spent so much time in getting the production and the arrangement and the instrumentation to the point where we had.
Totally.
We're kind of at the early period now of 1997, so we're looking round about February. We're a bit cagey about the timelines here, and we're a band that never put dates on anything, which, when you're doing this kind of retrospective, is just a nightmare.
Which is crazy for me, because you was somewhat a train spotter that was concerned.
But I have a file fax, the missing file fax. I have a leather file fax full of all the times and dates. And this thing has travelled with me, no matter where I've gone, for the last 25 years, okay? And it's like, and every time I moved, I'll be going through a box, I'd pick this file fax up and I'd reminisce and I'd go through it, and all the dates are in the file fax. This was recorded on that day. That was the recording dates. They're all in that bloody thing, and I can't find it.
Float in a picture of a file fax, because there'll be a lot of people who ain't got a clue what a file fax is.
It was an essential bit of 90s kit. We're now in the period of early 97, and we've asked Paul Marklew to come and sing at this point, not as the permanent vocalist. In fact, actually, I do remember now. I remember once we got Paul to actually sing on the songs and we heard his voice in the studio, it was a no-brainer that we were going to ask him to join the band. That was. I think it was pretty much that instantaneous. We were cagey up until...
Yeah, I know what you said. I remember, sorry to butt in, but I remember the conversation, because I think the actual... him not being a member of the band at the time of that conversation in my house was a mutual thing. I'm sure it was a mutual thing. We were saying, we don't want you as a permanent member, and he was saying, well, I couldn't be anyway because I'm here, there and everywhere. So the recording session suited him and us perfectly.
Yeah, it was he was very busy with the trips. He was playing on the boats, and I remember his last trip was to Greenland. That sticks in my mind, and that ended around about July '97. But at this point, he was heavily involved in he was working. Yeah, he was a working musician. So you're probably right. It was a case of it works for me and it works for you. However, I do remember the conversation that I had with him in Intax Muse, which was about joining the band.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember the look I got when I turned around and said to him, if you join the band, then you have to understand that the point of view is of all material is it's split between every band member equally. And
as it always was from day one when we started. It's the only way it can be.
Well, I'll be honest. At first it wasn't, but then it did become that, because we sat down and had that conversation, and it was like any band that's ever amounted to anything is a everyone's got to be equal. You've all got to be making the same. And even though this is the most ridiculous conversation to be having, it's better to have it at that moment in time, because then if things do work out, then what happens? Everybody's catered for. Because nobody wants to be in a situation where you're in a band and you will just become a paid hand in the end. Because the songwriter will be making all the money, and while he's flying around in his helicopter, you're on your bike.
Well, true, because they are the sort of conversations that, like you just said, seem heavily dramatic at the time, that you think are pointless at the time of the inception of whatever the project you're doing, but they're not. They're massively important.
You've got to be thinking ahead. You have to realise that these kind of conversations need to be had when there's nothing to be had, because when you're talking about 25% of nothing, it doesn't matter. But anyway, and obviously there are certain things that will always stick in your mind when it comes to conversations that you've had with people, and this one was an interesting one, shall we say? But it had to be. It's like everything that gets submitted to this band from this point on, the band has ownership of. So with Pete being in the band now, we've got pretty much total access to Pete's Pad Total Audio recording studio, and we make the obvious decision that the next set of the next demo, the next set of 3 songs, is going to be recorded in Pete's Pad by Pete. There were still restrictions there, because we did we pay for the studio time, or did we just pay for the tape?
The tape, wasn't it?
So all the studio time was pretty much free. But we had to pay for all the tape. However, we still had a limited amount of time, because it was a studio. It was booked. People were using it all the time. So we would be going in there, and we have at least one recording which only came to light a couple of weeks back, which I didn't even know that I had, which is the 4 of us. So that's me, you, Dave Gelder, Pete Clarke, rehearsing some newer material that never got recorded, and also at the same time having a bit of a piss about, which obviously caused great hilarity amongst us all when we actually found this, because nobody had heard this recording since the day it was recorded.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I've got big testicles, all everybody knows. They're bigger than fucking days. I forgot the words then. Should take the chord at the end.
You sure about this one, Pete?
Well, it works for me.
Which instrument do you want us to play?
I've got big testicles and everybody knows. And they're bigger than fucking days.
beers every day. And Scotch acts. He's got a big wall, everybody says. These assholes stinks and it's red. He's got piles, days on the and every fucker knows. And his face is longer than his dick. Thank you and good night, all you at the social club. It's been a great night. Thank you.
Go home safely now.
Do you think they'll find that as funny as we did?
Well, it is quite hilarious.
Oh, I tell you what I want. I want If you wanna be my lover, you gotta get with my friends. Make the fucking last forever. Friendship never ends. I'm the black one with little tits. Dave's the fucking blonde. And Scott's the fucking posh one. And Pete's. I tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
Don't tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
I wanna
Still recording now.
I wanna really, really, really wanna Zig-A-Zig-Ah. If you wanna be my lover, you've gotta get with my friends. Friendship lasts forever. Friendship never fucking ends. If you wanna be my lover, you gotta get with my friends. Make it last forever. And again, so I tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
Tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
I really, really, really want Zig-A-Zig-Ah. Yeah, we'll have to polish that one a bit better. Yeah, we'll just have to wait them chords out. It'll come in the end. I mean, we've got a gig next week.
Well, nobody's done a better cover version of a Spice Girls song than that.
Song, yeah, ever. I guarantee it. It's well, it should have been the original. That one, let's be honest.
I think if that was sent to the Spice Girls, they'd reform with Jerry tomorrow.
I do. And record it in that manner.
Yeah. We're really now at the beginning of the recording sessions for the second demo tape. And these are a song called Brother, 1,000 Miles, and What in the World. Now, these three songs were 100% recorded to be sent out to record companies. And also, you know, any other kind of publicity that we could get for them. So the predominant track of the three songs is Brother, even though the actual cassette was called What in the World, which more was only chosen with relation to the actual cover of the cassette, which, keeping in very 90s fashion, was 3 UFOs over 3 pyramids. It's that fucking X-Files influence coming in. But
I liked it.
It should have been called Brother because that was the principal track and it was the standout track. And without a shadow of a doubt, and I don't care what any fucker says, this was the best song that we had at that moment in time.
Although I know what you're saying, but I don't think you call a tape that's any one of the songs that's on it. For me, you call the tape what the tape. You come up with a name for the tape. You don't call it the principal track. I certainly never would. But you know,
well, I would simply because it's the best song of the three, and that's the only reason. It's like from my point of view, it's like if you really want to point the fingers at what it is that you're doing at that moment in time, Brother was it.
What forgot what the 3 tracks again. Brother, 1,000 Miles.
1,000 Miles. What in the World?
Yeah, I'd probably think 1,000 Miles is better than the others.
I'll tell you something now. If you break my heart, I'll leave you crying. Don't tear it all apart, 'cause if by chance it starts, you'll come running to me confide in. Gone, the pain it won't last long, but if it lingers on, just come running to me. You see, I'll go 1,000 miles till I find you, and I'll find you alone. You see, I'll search till the end of time as you remind me of everything in my world. Oh, you know, I'll go 1,000 miles till I find you, and I'll find you alone. You see, I'll search till the end of time as you remind me of everything in my world. I'll go 1,000 miles till I find you, and I'll find you alone. You see, I'll search till the end of time as you remind me of everything in my world.
Yeah, it's taste now. I don't think you thought that at the time.
No, I thought it was. No, I probably thought that Brother was the most commercial track, the one that might hit the ground running, and probably that's all. I think it was the most finished track then, before George Martin or anyone got their hands on it, which they definitely wouldn't. But yeah, yeah. But
I
that's
think
all
1,000 Miles
semantics.
is 1,000 Miles is a good song, but I just don't think. Well, this is the point. Yeah, it's after it's been recorded. The production, the arrangement on Brother stood out enough so that when we did start sending those tapes around, that was the track that people thought, hang on a minute, it was the first track that was on the cassettes, because again, these are all cassettes. We're not even burning CDs at this point, even though you could do that, but we weren't sending them out. So the standout track was coming back from the people that we'd sent this to was going to be Brother. But before we jump to that, the recording sessions of these three tracks, again, we couldn't put live drums on them because we never had the studio time. We couldn't pay for the studio time, so the precision drumming of mine was actually all they were all written in your back bedroom, weren't they?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, was that all that got took to the studio? I programmed the drums and the bass, and not
drums.
the bass, no, just the drums.
No, we sat down and we went through the drums, and the way that, because we were in this ridiculous situation of not having enough money to actually record proper drums, as you alluded to much earlier, we would sit there and we would go through them meticulously, as in, this is what I would play at this moment in time. So this is how I would play it, and that's how they were programmed into the machine.
A drummer sat with a programmer.
Yeah, saying, right, this is the hi-hat movement, this is the fill, this is where I would hit the cymbal, and we did this in such a meticulous way. That's why on these particular tracks, it fooled people into believing it was a real drummer.
Yeah.
Because they were meticulously gone over, and I especially remember it on these.
Oh yeah, we spent a lot of time on that. I remember that.
There were 6 songs altogether in this session that were recorded, but split into 3. So there were Brother, 1,000 Miles, What in the World, She Believes, When We Were Young, and Heavy Seas. But focusing on the first 3 at the moment, all that drum programming was done back at your place, and then we took that into the studio, and then all those drums were then put down onto one track. And then obviously we're now in a 12-track situation. There's no bouncing down as we were talking about before, and we're now in a place where we can actually get involved in the actual proper arrangement and production of these songs and make them the best that we possibly could. And I'm still, really happy with the production value and the sound of those songs.
I do believe, though, that you just referring back to what you just said there about bouncing. If Pete's listening to this, Pete certainly would have still done some bouncing though. But when you're bouncing,
but he's doing it onto 2 inch.
When you're doing a half inch, 2 inch, or whatever you're doing it on, the quality is a million times superior. But because the drums would have gone in. Oh no, it would have just been stereo, wouldn't it? Yeah. So it would have just been 2 tracks of drums, stereo track. That's it. Yeah.
But again, down to the production values and the way that they were written, the sounds that were used, the production values when we got into Pete's pad, they sounded like real drums. I mean, obviously, I'm a drummer. You're a musician. You can hear the nuances that betray the fact that these are programmed. But from the point of view of like the average punter, in fact, also industry people, they thought those drums were all real drums.
Well, the perfect thing, the thing with that was before you sat next to me, drums was always my programming forte. I always spent a lot of time programming drums, and I've reprogrammed drums for bands in our town who have gone in the studio and they couldn't use their drummer. So I was adept at programming drums. I was obviously even far superior to that when you're a drummer and you're sat next to me telling me what you would actually be playing. So that union of me and you was perfect for that.
It's also worth pointing out that back in the day, we like I said, we're talking about 1997 here. This was very usual for most bands. You could go in the studio and you could do some recording, but the setting up and the recording of drums is such a time-consuming period, and especially because what most drummers, they'll be in there for the first time. If they're having to play to a click, it'll be the first time they've played to a click. It's an alien environment in doing that. No drummer likes playing to a click. No. So it's like it's much easier. It's just a case of it's cheaper and it's easier to get the drums programmed than it is to actually play them.
If you want to look at a clip of a drummer hating a click, look at Larry Mullen Jr. on Live Aid, I think. And you can see him. He wants to have a fight with the drum engineer and the sound engineer, and the thing that's hanging out of his ear at that point. It looks like he wants to murder everyone.
Well, when we were recording the later material and it was all live drums, we started with clicks, and clicks are, I'm fine playing to clicks. I'm like every drummer. Once you've got it in your head, you can play to a click. But you want to be playing, and you play to a click to the band, so you don't just play to the click. The band is there, and but you can't get involved in it because you're too busy, making sure you're keeping in time with the click. However, the best later recordings we did were just done live with the band, and then overdubs put on afterwards. And then every time we move back to doing, for whatever reason...
because I don't remember this. So the later recordings, you're not playing at all to any click?
No, there's a section... This is jumping ahead in the timeline and further than we want to go, but the recording of a huge lot of songs, maybe about 10 songs that were recorded in... late 90s. No, it's going to be early 98 up to the summer of 98. All those songs were recorded just live. just a band. There were no clicks. We were just playing. We at that point, from the point of view of, we were so well rehearsed that you were, you know,
that's understandable. But you're setting the time. Your timing was obviously impeccable because you're setting the time. No, none of the others are. You are.
Yeah, but what you're doing is you're playing with the band. Do you know what I mean? It's like you haven't got that, you know, that pots and pans click going on in your head.
No, yeah, of course you are. But what I'm saying is, you're the foundation to that track. So you're the one whose timing's perfect. If your timing's off, so is everybody else's.
Well, if you listen to, we're going to jump too far ahead in the timeline if we start talking about the recording of those particular songs. But the best songs that we had in that later period, from my point of view, just from the ambience, the feel, the vibe that you're getting when we recorded them live. And of course, by saying that, what I mean is the band was in the studio. Everything was recorded at that moment in time as if we were playing a live performance.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah,
but you do, but a lot of other people won't. You've got a situation where then everything is stripped down. You use the drum track, and then where needs be, the bass, the guitars are all played again, or there'll be slight overdubs added to them, and then the main vocal will be done completely from scratch. So this is the bane of drummers. The fact is that everybody else gets to spend a very, very long period of time perfecting their parts, and whatever nuanced piece they don't like, they're going to take out and redo again. Whereas you can do that. You can do that now with drumming. You can get the worst drummer in the world in the studio and put exactly what he's playing in perfect time. But back in the late 90s, you know, you've got live drums and they're live drums, and they've got to be played in time. So, you know, it was always kind of.
Yeah, I mean, the amazing thing is now I can take all your drums and change the sounds of your drums. Today's recording of drums, like you said just then, is just different world.
I hate it. Yeah, I hate it. It's just
it ruins the rawness of actually what a drum kit, you know, is supposed to sound like.
Yeah, I'd never, you know, I don't play anymore. I don't record anymore. So it's like it's just not something that I'm ever interested in. I'm only interested in getting in a room with like three other guys and bashing it out. Anything else, just forget it. I'm not interested. But so we're in a situation now where we've got these 3 tracks. They're done. They're ready to go. And then that's where the industry contacts that you've got via your brother, Jamie. We've kind of got an in to the music industry there, because we can get these songs to people who are making decisions over whether or not they're going to sign a band. Now, again, we're in no way are we in a position where we're ready to be signed. We're not. But every band thinks that they are, and you, as with every band, especially during this period, the moment that you got 3 songs together on a tape, you sent them straight out to the industry, and you waited for the rejection letters to come back, if you got a letter at all. I found going through all my stuff today from RCA, and it was a letter from a tape that we sent to them. However, there was no bloody letter in it, it's just the envelope. But you know, it would have been nice to have had a rejection, because we sent that tape out to everybody. So, you know, EMI, Independiente were a label at the time, V2, Virgin, all these are like pretty much Virgin related. But all of them, RCA, the lot, all the record companies all got a copy of our tape. And that also brings us into we make a reference to this when me and Dave are talking to the BBC on the BBC radio interview, that we spent a lot of money and a lot of time on the packaging to make sure that people would see what we were sending, because obviously by that time in the 90s, we're talking post Britpop here, but still there were, you know, guitar bands were still heavily influencing out of the radio and everything else. And because, young bands are all full of piss and wind and hubris, we thought we were as good as anybody else that was on the radio. So we were like, well, how these people are getting hundreds, if not thousands, of tapes per week. How do we get ours noticed?
Just going back to the Zomba thing. You're talking about sending off tapes there. I bet it's a little point to make is that my brother would have had no recollection of that whatsoever. Sandy was the point of contact, and Jamie would.
Do you know Sandy's surname?
No, I don't know. But yeah, it was. I remember them being home at some point, and I never spoke to Jamie about any of it at all. But I remember speaking to Sandy, and she was like, "Well, why don't you let me see what I can do?" And I bet Jamie had no recollection of that whatsoever. I bet he still don't to this day. So, but Sandy did what she could.
There's bound to be sibling rivalry there anyway. It's just the way that it is. I mean, there is. There's bound to be because the point is like, were Giant Killers doing anything at that point, or had they got been and gone?
What year are we talking? Did we say?
97.
Nah, probably yeah. There's a point. Yeah, Giant Killers. So you're all about pushing your own thing, aren't you? So
for other people listening who don't know, Giant Killers was basically Illustrious Mark II. Pablo was no longer involved, and Mike Brown and Jamie Wortley went off and did a band called Giant Killers.
Go very far. They, I think they wrote a track for George Best. They did. Jamie, I'll just finish that off. Jamie rang me and said, "Guess who's coming, taking us for dinner?" I said, "Who?" He said, "George Best and his missus." I went, "You joking?" I went, "No." And they wrote this track. They wrote some good tracks as a little duo. They did as well. They wrote some good tracks, but I didn't think that one was that good. But Georgie Best obviously did.
It's difficult for me because I just absolutely hate that type of music. I can't rate it because it's that it's that programmed pop. But anyway. In the early 90s, you're saying about George Best. When I was working with that band Escapade,
who I quite liked,
we got the manager of David Essex get in touch with us and said, "Could you do a remix of Rock On? We want to bring it into the 90s." But so we're now in a situation where the tapes are done. The packaging's ready. Everything's sent out to everybody. We're starting to get the replies back. All the replies are no, but thanks very much. We then get an interview lined up with Radio Humberside. You're only on there for about 15 minutes. But, hey, it's the BBC, and we got 2 songs played in full. In the afternoon. I don't know what the listening figures were for like Radio Humberside back then, but it was certainly important to us. But we, both I and Dave Gelder went over there and spoke for like I said, 15 minutes. It's great experience. The interview went well. We've told them pretty much what was happening. We've got people interested, but other than that, there wasn't really that much going on. But what approach, or the radio DJ approached, is the fact that we weren't playing live at that moment in time.
Isn't playing live, though, a bit of a necessity to get you known? It's like being in a studio, putting stuff on tape, but if you play live, more people see you, hear you, is that right? I don't know how it works.
It's like nowadays. Like, it depends on what you're after. If you want to get out there as a gigging working band, that's great. And I've done it. Dave's done it. Lee's done it. Everybody in the band has done it to some degree. And we've now been a bit older, a little bit wiser. Realised that is very important. I'm not going to say that it isn't, because it is. But
you don't want to alienate.
That's right. It's a situation like we've decided that the songs themselves are what we're trying to sell to the people that we are now in negotiation with in London. And even though, yes, eventually they're going to want to see us live, we know that the band can play live whenever they want to play live. We want to play live. It's just a case of let's knuckle down, get on with the songs, because there are two routes. You can be the working gigging band, or you can be the studio band. And we decided that at this point in time, it's more in our interests to go the latter route.
It's not that, and as you say, it's not that you can't do the other. It's you can do it, so you put it on hold.
Yeah, I don't want to sound arrogant.
No, but I know what you mean. No, you're not sounding at all.
It's just a case of, like, we have decided that we would rather work on the songs and perfect the songs, because initially what is going to attract anybody to our music is the songs themselves and the tape that we send to people, and that's where we've emphasised.
And the not being able to play live started to eat away at the fabric of the band. So at that moment in time, we're like, look, we've got the tunes, we've got the studio, we've got the rehearsal space, which we're now starting to use. We really need to start moving this on to the next level, which is to become a proper gigging band. I think, as I say in that actual interview.
Yeah, you do.
But then we also send off a tape of Brother to Total Guitar magazine.
I said to my brother today, is your life okay? Or are you waiting for something good to come along? Just like the first song blew your mind away. So if you're feeling down, think up and you remember the day that you got your first game. No longer stood in the line anymore, and how you wanted to score. Never ever feel the same as you did the day the crowd called out your name. Oh, what a buzz. So when you're down, just think of the day, 'cause hey, it never feels the same. Well, it's time now to cast your dreams away. Listen to the song, I got something to say to you. 'Cause boy, it never felt so good. The message that I'm trying to tell you is nothing's worth giving a hell about anyway. If you cast your dreams in a pool, you never know where they're gonna land. Like etching your name in the sand, the sea will wash it away, even on a summer day. And your life will crash against the rock, break into 1,000 pieces for you to pick up. Listen to me when I say, hey, life is only a game we play. And if you're waiting for brighter days to shine on through, at a different point of view, you gotta hold on to all the hope you've got, 'cause you need your strength to keep a hold on the life that you've lost. Well, hey, it never feels the same. Well, it's time now to cast your dreams away. Listen to the song, I got something to say to you. 'Cause boy, it never felt so good.
Did you used to buy Total Guitar magazine? Where did this come from?
Yeah, I bought them all. I bought Future Music, Total Guitar, and I bought what was the other one? Another one anyway of that time, Mix Mag, I think it was, and that would have come from that. It would have come from the Band of the Month section that's in Total Guitar. I mean, let's be honest, right? Total Guitar magazine, although it's a magazine about guitars, it's a very sort of prestigious magazine, but that all guitarists buy.
You're talking in present tense. Is it still around?
Yeah, I think it might have an online presence. I don't know if no, it must be still being made. Yeah, it's a big deal. Total Guitar.
Well, that's another thing to remember, because back then there is no... Look, the internet exists, but there's nothing really going on there. Was even Napster around at this point? It was, wasn't it? Your file sharing was happening at this point.
Yeah.
But there wasn't that much else going on. I mean, there certainly wasn't social media. There was no major sites for you to be buying product from.
At that time you probably had ICQ, which was the chat medium of that time, if you remember. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, it was the same time as Napster. But like you say, that was pretty much it. There was nothing much.
So there's not the ways that you can promote your band and promote your material today, where there's just infinite ways of doing that. But then it was like, so to send your demo tape off to a prestigious guitar magazine like Total Guitar and get reviewed in their what was it, Demo of the Month?
The Demo of the Month were one of my idols on the, was echoing back to the Stone Roses, John Squire on the cover, and we're on the back and we're in there as the Band of the Month. It was like written in the stars, that.
Well, this tape was sent to them back in May of '97. It would have been around about the time that the radio interview was done, and they published it in the August '97 issue. I'll put a copy of this on the screen now so people can see what it is.
And they get thousands of entries, don't they?
Look, honestly, I know nothing about this magazine. I'm not a guitarist, so...
Well, Band of the Month for any... Like you just said, like we've just pointed at, the Band of the Month is like a big deal. It's like you think that A&R people are going to be looking at the Band of the Month, etc.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, if you're a guitar band and you think you want... You want to move up to the next level, you're going to send your demo in. It's like, £1, stick it in a padded envelope and send it off like you did, and the chance that you might win a bunch of goodies that never turned up, and be the Band of the Month. I mean, to be honest with you, I still can't believe that happened for us. That was quite a big thing, that.
Yeah, it did literally come out of nowhere, because we were not getting any kind of interest, really. No, we were getting positive reviews. People were like, yeah, this is good, this is quality, this is going somewhere, and rightly so, from the point of view of the way that people were reacting. We were nowhere near in the place where we could be signed.
No.
But we thought, obviously, with a few industry contacts ourselves, that we might be able to,
But we were on a CD with our names on it. We didn't care.
What, did a CD come with that?
Yeah, CD, yeah. I've got it, yeah.
Are you sure about that?
100% positive. I've got it.
So what was Brother on that CD?
Yeah. Last track on the CD, yeah.
Oh, it's interesting, because I don't have the CD anymore. Oh, yeah, it says here, Mag CD. Every month, only $3.99.
I think we was track 32 or something, yeah.
Oh right, okay. Well, I've forgotten all about that. Well, I'm gonna read out this review.
Go on.
But what I'm going to do first is total guitar verdict is originality 4 out of 5, production 5,
Wow.
and signability
1.
4 out of 5.
Oh.
Now, I actually do agree with the production, because the production on that track is pretty damn good. And again, on that point, we found out recently from Pete that the reason that the production does sound so warm and so great on that particular song is because they were using the old 12-track desk that had been there, I would think, for bloody years. It had probably been there since the 80s, beginning of the 80s. But I mean, I don't know how old that particular desk was. Pete will know that. But they changed it.
Oh, it was dead old,
You know,
I remember, yeah.
They changed it to a new one not that long after this, and everything else after that just didn't sound as it was just that warmth, the analog warmth, that depth. But yeah, I mean, track 53, Brother. Think Oasis with good manners, throw in some crowded house vocals and a sprinkling of the usual 60s guitar influences, and you'll be pretty damn close to the sound of Lincolnshire songsmith's Submarine. Songwriting drummer Scott collaborated with guitarist Lee to help arrange some of the material he'd been working on, and the fruits of their association proved sufficiently good to inspire them to put a band together. They gathered some local musicians around a core writing team of Lee and Scott and lead guitarist Dave, and Submarine was born. This just sounds like our chat. Anyway, the results of this collaboration speak for themselves in an accomplished package of quality songs, excellent playing, faultless production, and a commercial edge that should definitely prick up the ears of A&R.
So why did we bother having this? Oh, carry on. Sorry, it carries on, does it?
Yeah. Hang on, wait a minute. There's loads more. Opening up with a piano part engineered to sound like a crackly record, Brother initially reeks of Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis.
Fuck off.
But is mercifully devoid of the mock Mancunian nasal whining of a true piece of plagiarism. The sound broadens as the track proper fades in with a wash of acoustic guitars, strumming subtle rhythmic variations between the two parts and adding a dynamic spread to the track. David's gently overdriven Telecaster punctuates the rolling acoustics with riffs and picked chords, with the kind of minimalist playing that denotes a classic guitarist at work, a fact reinforced by the neat wah-wah back lead break that emerges later. The only criticism you could air against Submarine will be the derivative nature of their style. There are definitely moments when they stray dangerously close to their influences. The track is saved by the genuine talents involved, though, with all the parts played with a fluidity and a musical cooperation that's uncommonly good. McCartney-esque melodic bass runs, precision drumming. Top this off with Paul Marklew's superior vocal, adding a necessary distinction that moves effortlessly between mellow tones and the slightly broken timbre that surfaces at climatic moments, and you're onto a bit of a winner.
Sounds like a trifle.
Looks like, and it's got my contact telephone number from the 1990s. Don't call it, because I'm not there. But so I mean that is I have not read that review since that time, and I'm being serious. I've never read that.
No, I haven't.
Since the late 90s. Now I know that we got a good like score, as in like the 2 4s and the 5.
Yeah, I do.
But,
yeah.
That's pretty.
That's pretty.
Oh, actually, do you know what they also list? They list all the equipment that we used to record it.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I remember now, yeah.
So, this is what we used for those interested. This is a bit geeky, but you never know. Somebody might want to know. The equipment that was used, a Yamaha APX acoustic, Fender HMT Telecaster with twin humbuckers, a Patrick Egel Berlin. Who was a Rickenbacker 12-string? That was at Allen's, wasn't it?
Rickenbacker 12-string?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
Pete mentioned it. Pete mentioned this to me the other day. He said there's a 12-string on the recordings of those first 3 songs. And I said, I don't know, is there? And he went, yeah, I can hear it.
No, I can't.
A Rickenbacker 12-string, Tanglewood acoustic. A Morley Wah-Wah, Digitech GSP21 Pro effects, Marshall JPM1 preamp, Marshall 8008 power amp, Marshall 1922 cabs, Leveson bass guitar, track drums, Roger cymbals.
Who's Roger?
Roger Taylor from Queen. No, Roger Taylor from Duran Duran. He lent me his cymbals. He said,
I wondered who that was dropping them off at the studio.
It's Roger Taylor.
I mean, that's one damn good review. I mean, let's be honest. Why we've bothered to have a 2.5, 3 hour conversation, we could have just pointed him to the band synopsis in the back of that review, and we could have had done with it.
We're supposed to win a strap, some pickups, I don't know, some other bits of strings, whatever, some other bits and pieces, which the fuckers never sent to us.
I don't think
And told Guitar, to this day, we still have not received this equipment. We would like it.
Well, with the interest now.
Well, we've pretty much given them a good plug on this podcast, which is going out to 37 people. Can you imagine how many people are still listening at this point? I mean, your mum's listening, and
I mean, I'm not listening, if I'm honest.
Nobody is listening to. If you've got this far in, write to us at the. How are we going to know that they've got this far in? This is how. Write to us with a number 53 to the email address that you will find in the description of this YouTube upload, and we're going to send you some.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to
goodies.
send them. We'll send them we'll get Total Guitar to send them the stuff they never fucking sent us.
I'm going to get them to. I'm going to get. No, they're going to get sent a signed photograph of Pete Clarke.
You always have to ruin things.
I could have said a signed photograph of Pete Clarke in a bikini. That would have really ruined things.
No, I mean that's ruining the evening.
Unfortunately, nothing came from this amazing review, and I think the probability is this: the band was at the point of breaking up. So it wasn't used. It wasn't utilised in any way.
And we never followed it up.
Well, no more tapes were sent out to anybody from this incarnation of the band. And obviously we've taken it to its peak at this moment, which is this pretty good review and breakdown of the band and its abilities in what was the top-selling guitar magazine of its day. As you rightly said, A&R would have been reading this.
Yeah.
But the problem that we had is that the band in its original format was on the verge of like breaking up. Now, I mean, how much do you want to go into this?
Well, my Syd Barrett to the Pink Floyd era was about to, it was happening. It was that all over again. I was about to leave. I don't actually remember leaving, though. I remember us saying that I would leave as personnel, but I would still be in there writing stuff, and you'd pick and choose which bits you thought was shit and what you fancied using. And I think that was how my union with Submarine came to an end.
Sat in the rain, You said you'd teach me lessons again. And all the things I said to you, they began to sound the same. I just couldn't see why you leave me hanging out so dry. You said you'd hoped I'd have learned my lessons again by now. But it's such a shame. Yeah, what more can I say? Everything was easy way back then when we were young. Everything just seemed to go so well. You were like a child when we first met, and that's all gone. Now nothing ever seems to be the way it used to be when we were young. Sat in the rain, watched my life pass by again. 'Cause all the things I said to you got washed away in the rain. I just couldn't see why you leave me hanging out so dry. You said you'd hoped I'd have learned my lessons again by now. But it's such a shame. Yeah, what more can I say? Everything was easy way back then when we were young. Everything just seemed to go so well. You were like a child when we first met, and that's all gone. Now nothing ever seems to be the way it used to be when we were young. Everything was easy way back then when we were young. Everything just seemed to go so well. You were like a child when we first met, and that's all gone. Now nothing ever seems to be the way it used to be when we were young. When we were young. When we were
We don't have to go into any great detail. The fact was that we couldn't play live as the format that we were. And the four of us had to go out and play live. We knew that that was down the road. And I think the hugely positive response that we got from this particular tape moved us into a different place.
At the time of me leaving, I had what no one would know, but that only we know. I had a sort of mental breakdown. And I don't mind sharing that too, but it don't matter. It has to be said. That's what happened.
You're living it, so you know exactly what it's like. But from the outside looking in, that's not the way that we perceived it.
No.
we didn't perceive it as being as a big an issue as you obviously did living through it. What do you think caused it? Because I've got an opinion.
I know exactly what caused it.
Go on then.
Being locked away in bedroom studios for 10 years of my life or whatever, and I got that used to being on my own. It sort of had an adverse effect on me, and then I sort of got to a point where I couldn't be on my own, and it made me have a bit of a breakdown. It's
just ironic that you're doing something that you love so much that in the end ends up
biting you in the ass.
Yeah, exactly. It's just. But
my mate said to me, sorry to butt in, but my mate said to me when I was locked in the studio when I was about 18 or 19 years old, he said to me, "Are you coming to the pub?" And I said, "No." And he went, "Lee, I'm not being funny, but you're going to drive yourself mad." I went, "Don't talk fucking stupid." He went, "Lee, I bet you're going to make yourself ill because you don't go out hardly ever." And this was only for a period of about a year because I was always massively active and I was always out. I was a football player. I was, all my childhood and all that lot. But when I got to discovering recording, and I could record in my own time in my own house, I just got engulfed in that and I stuck to that. And I do remember having times of darkness and thinking, I think he might be right, but I didn't give a fuck. I just wanted to carry on doing it.
Well, for the people, lucky people like myself, who have never had any kind of issues like this in their entire life, it is incredibly difficult for us to relate to.
Yeah.
Because we just don't, it's just not part of our scope of experience.
No.
So, and when you look at it from the perspective of like, we don't understand fully exactly what it is that you're going through at that moment in time. Our response, though, is not flippant. It is understanding, but we don't understand. We don't get it at all.
No.
So from our perspective, we're like, for fuck's sake, we're a band. We have to get out there. We have to play live. You know that. So we either do it or we don't. And if we don't, it's not the end of the band. That's, in a nutshell, that's where we're at. But again, we didn't know it was as bad as it was for you.
No, because at that time, it wasn't, it was sort of passé, I mean? It's sort of, you wouldn't have spoken about it then, You're talking about that sort of time then in the 96, 97, no one spoke about it. I'd had moments of it all my life. Well, no, not all my life, from me early 20s. Much the same way that Syd Barrett did and other people did. And nowadays, because of the ridiculous PC world we live in, you wouldn't be allowed to have that viewpoint. You would have to nurture me for, wouldn't you? Because that's the way things are these days. It's ridiculous. And now, if you are, look, these days, if you're not, I'm going political and we're talking about gender now, but if you say now that you've never experienced any sort of depression, anxiety, or OCD, or anything of that sort of mental problems, you're in a minority in this decade we're in. Much has sort of cemented that even more in this ridiculous lockdown we've just been in.
Yeah, we never had any kind of inclination that it was actually as bad as it was. Now, of course, we knew it had to be quite serious because it was affecting the band to the point where we had to move on. And at this point, it wasn't without you, but it was you working in a capacity of carrying on writing, carrying on being involved, but just not being involved at all in the live presentation of the band. And what this also meant was, from the point of view of promoting the band would now have to become a 4-piece, but with a silent partner as such.
Yeah. So like we said, without we're not pairing ourselves with Syd Barrett and Pink Floyd, but it was much in that same scenario, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was. There's no two ways about it.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know that much about Syd Barrett. I understand. I know the very brief details of the situation, but the fact is, I think from my perspective, it's like, as a mate, I can understand how difficult this is for you. But also, I'm looking at a career and I want to do this, and we're now moving into a period, an area where there is a possibility that this might go somewhere. Now, in the end, it didn't, but it didn't for very, very, very different reasons for where we are now.
But like you say, you never knew that at that time, and I would never hold you lot back, because of my own sort of mental issues. You couldn't. You wouldn't have done it to me, and nor would any other members of the band. So I had no choice at that time but to pull away from it. It became... I remember rehearsing became a bit of a challenge sometimes, and then turning up at the studio sometimes became even more of a challenge.
Well, that was when we first realised that the situation was untenable, and that was in the studio during those recording sessions. So when we get to the point where we're recording 3 different songs, which was She Believes, Heavy Seas, and When We Were Young, it became very apparent to us that we just could not continue with the situation that we had for anybody's well-being, because we could see that we needed you there in the studio, you wanted to be there in the studio, yet it was making you 10 times worse when you turned up.
Her eyes were like the darkest night as she walked in the room. I think my spirit left her side again, choking on perfume from her as we were pressed up tight. I think she drank a sea of wine or 2. Slipping in and out of sleep, her speech was wearing thin. I think she lost the thread, so she began again. A tale I heard 1,000 times, you insist I hear it again. Oh, will this story never ever end? And after all this time, I can read her mind. Is she oh so predictable, yet so sublime? She takes me as she sees. She says she understands me. I give her just what she needs, and she believes in me. Out on the chair, displaying her lust without a care. I could have leapt on this advantage and left my mark on her, but to my surprise, respect I didn't know was there. blew me to the sky as if my thoughts were just a crime. And after all this time, I can read her mind. Is she oh so predictable yet so sublime? She takes me as she sees. She says she understands me. I give her just what she needs, and she believes in me. Story never end, and after all this time I can read her mind. Is she oh so predictable yet so sublime? She takes me as she sees. She says she understands me. I give her just what she needs, and she believes. And after all this time I can read her mind. Is she oh so predictable yet so sublime? She takes me as she sees. She says she understands me. I give her just what she needs, and she believes in me. In me.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrible for me because the birth of those songs that we'd done together, and then it's like sort of letting whether people think the songs are great or it doesn't matter. It's like when you write anything, you know, or it becomes like your baby. So when you're, even though once you pass it to the band, your formulated idea of maybe just a verse and a chorus, it's like, oh, I've just written, you know, fucking Penny Lane or something, or the beginnings of it, and then the band grab it, and then it turns into something better, and then you've got to let go of it and just let them make all the decisions on where it goes from there. Was fucking heartbreaking for me. It was horrible. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I thought I could do what I do now remotely without any connection to anyone, I would have probably started doing it years and years ago. But even though, I mean, I think the internet world is 50% a piece of shit, you know, because it's ruined a lot of lives. The internet and online access to everything. But in another sense, it's made working remotely easier. Not as a band member, but you know, in other areas. Even as a band member, like we know now, you can literally start a band now. If we'd have got together now, we could have been massive, even with all my problems. Because as recording artists, it would never would have mattered. You know, you could have been, I don't mean massive, but you could have gone on and done a decent amount of things that you could have been recognised for. Whereas back then, you do that, it's like you conform to that thing. You record, you get a record deal, and then you go out and promote it. And I know that's what you have to do these days, but these days it's so much easier for people.
It's a situation that could be overcome if it happens after the success. As in, if there's money involved, yeah, then you can overcome anything. Because there are plenty of instances out there where bands, or you know, like an artist will write with a co-writer and will record with a co-writer and co-producer. But they don't go out on tour with them. There's plenty of
Yeah. So I could have made a good living doing that, yeah. If the songs were good enough and we'd have got to that. It's like now, if all of a sudden, like, going reiterating on something you've just said, if we're talking about someone like Ed Sheeran, who's massive now, if all of a sudden he became agoraphobic, not that I'm not suggesting I am, but let's say he was, he would still have a career in music. He's gigged for a long time, and I know they do like you to gig because people want to see you, but the point is people still want to hear your songs, and they still will sell.
The problem is, twofold. Back in the day when we're talking in 1997, we're all young lads. We want to go out there. We want to be in a band. We want to be and experience everything that being in a band is, and we can't do it, and we've got no way around that. So therefore, something had to change, and it did, and that's exactly what we went and did. We went out there and we played live, and we did what we did. But the other side of it is, these days, pretty much the only way the majority of bands are making any money is by gigging. So even like you say, you do have the ability to record remotely in multiple different ways, but if you can't go out and play that live, then where are you going to make your money? So it works if you've had the success. If the success had come and the money had been there, then you could go out and then these things wouldn't matter. But when you're at the beginning of a band, and I would say even so today, I mean, there's so much you can do as a writer and an arranger and a producer. But if you're an artist or if you're a band, specifically if you're a band, you will have no choice but to go out there and play live because it's where everyone's making the money.
She lights my fire, then turns and walks away. Still insecure, but what more can I say? Just like the stars, she brightens up the sky. Don't mean any harm, but it's just the way you are, and it's just the way you'll stay. But what in the world can I say? Looks like she's gone and needs some room to sort out the things she wants to do, and you do. I didn't think that this would come so soon. I just don't know, and I can't think what to do. I just can't think what to do. I've had my share of lies to last a lifetime. Dreams so unclear that I had to walk the fine line. Just chasing stars, cause the truth's all locked away. There's no need for alarm, cause it's just the way I am, and it's just the way I'll stay. But what in the world could I say? Looks like she's gone and needs some room to sort out the things she wants to do, and you do. I didn't think that this would come so soon. I just don't know, and I can't think what to do. I just can't think what to do. Get easy on me now. Make it easy on me. Make it easy on me now. She lights my fire, then turns and walks away. what more can I say? Just like the stars, she brightens up the sky. Don't mean any harm, but it's just the way you are, and it's just the way you'll stay. But what in the world can I say? Looks like she's gonna need someone to sort out the things she wants to do, and you do. I didn't think that this would come so soon. I just don't know, and I can't think what to do. I just can't think what to do.
I mean, I should have my whole thing should have been that I worked with another writer and hopefully gone for publishing and done that thing. You know, that's probably what I should have done. But no, things happen for a reason, and I wasn't good enough as a songwriter to do that. And I don't believe that I never would have been, because I still write songs now, and some of them I think, you know, I would be quite happy for people to hear them, you know. But I was never going to be Lennon McCartney.
Look,
you know,
all these things are down to timing as much as they're down to anything else. It's like if you can have the best songs in the fucking world, but if you haven't got the timing's not right, forget it.
Wherewithal.
And you know, I think the perfect example of that is Submarine. You know, the summer of '98 to, you know, pretty much the middle of '99. If you're not, if the timing is off, doesn't matter. Does not matter.
Yeah.
So there was a very brief period of time where you were involved as, you know, a principal songwriter, because from the band's perspective, you know, we've got all these tunes, but these tunes are all co-written with you, and your input in that put us in a precarious situation, because we're a band that wants to go out and play live, and we've got the material that was our material, but that material is yours, and you are now no longer an integral part of that. So then what we've got to deal with as a four-piece is this also a tenable situation long term? Can we make this work? Because we hadn't been writing songs between the four of us without you involved. That had never occurred. So we didn't know how that was going to go. We hadn't, you know, it was literally an open book. And when because by the time we get into like July 97, August 97, we have, like I said, July 97, we have the total audio review. Then we move into the period of basically reflection. What are we going to do? By the time we get to October, November 97, it's pretty much a done deal, isn't it?
Yeah. Was there ever a chat about the reasons for my departure?
No, there was.
Because obviously I'm unaware of it.
Look, everybody knew kind of what was happening. Everybody knew that the issues were there, but it just became a bit more mercenary. It was like, we have to get out and play live.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you was aware of it and Dave was aware of it. Were the others, or they wouldn't have cared? Let's be honest. Let's be brutal about this. They wouldn't have give two shits. I wouldn't have give two shits. If you'd have said to me, Pete or Paul or Dave or whoever can't have anything to do with it no more because of this, I would have been quite mercenary myself. I thought, well, yeah, we need to crack on.
Yeah,
It's just the way it is.
I don't think there was. I think there was understanding. I don't. To be honest with you, I don't think like Paul or Pete were not like cognizant of the situation. But of course, everyone's thinking about their own perspective. Everyone's thinking, well, this is not going to work.
Of course.
So therefore, as difficult it is a situation for us all to be in, it's going to have to be talked about and it's going to have to be dealt with. And the conversation that I remember having with you was, look, this isn't going to work out, and you knew that anyway. So then it was like, well, look, what do we do about the material? And I distinctly remember us both having a conversation about the possibility of divvying up the material so we could go away and use Brother 1,000 Miles, and everything else would stay with you, and we wouldn't touch any of that. But then when it became apparent to me that the material that we were working with Paul basically taking your position within the band, it was a case of like, well, look, we can do this, so therefore it's going to be better for everybody if we just completely cut those ties. So it was like, in the end, we turned around. I turned around and said to you, look, we don't need to be using any of this material anymore because this really isn't going to work out. It's better if everything that, it's like, in a sense, October 1997, Submarine Mark II begins, and what came before is done. That's the end of it. But it doesn't come in like a major falling out or a massive fucking handbags at dawn situation. It was just it was kind of understood by everyone with minor conversations about it that the only way that everyone can move forward is by an amicable breakup. And within that breakup, everything that we had, we passed on to you and said, this is, we'll now go and do our thing. To end this, I think from my point of view, if anyone was to say to me, right, when you look back on that whole period, we'll say the whole period, so from 95 right the way through to 2000, what comes to mind? And it's regret. That's all it is regret. That's and the regret that the potential to do something was there, and we fucked up. We fucked it up.
Yeah. Well, that is a good end point.
Oh, well, before we go, I was the one that found the name Submarine. I know Dave Gelder is.
Oh, yeah.
Dave's got this idea that it was him, but I just want to put this record.
Oh no, it was definitely you.
Record straight. We needed a name for the band, and we had a yellow Beatles chord book that was by us.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we were going through it, picking out words, picking out phrases, and I came across the obvious Yellow Submarine, and I said, what about Submarine? And everybody agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, right, so fuck you, Dave.
Yeah, fuck you, Dave.
I can't find the words tonight to tell you how I feel. Just hold me in your arms so tight and show me love is real.